extremely important. They are probably the number one thing people see, share, and remember you by. So let's make sure that when we do this, we really know what we're doing. So I'm going to give everybody just a second. It usually takes about 30 seconds to a minute for people to log on. They see on Twitter and things, so I'm just going to wait just a minute. But you notice I got my NFL hat on. That's because today, or this week, is probably the biggest week in the NFL all year. It's the Super Bowl, also known as the Stupid Bowl. I watch for the commercials. We'll see what happens. Who am I rooting for? Well, you know, I host Tasty Food Live on Blab with a guy from Machismo called Nick Evans. That's his name. That's what they call him. And he's in Denver, so I suppose I better be rooting for the Broncos, huh? But, you know, once my Vikings are gone, I don't really care anymore. So, yay, there's a good comment. Love it. So, well, I'll get started here. So I've got a couple tips. Today is episode 33 or 34. Your Colts girl. Cool. Episode 33, I think. That's what we're calling it today, of daily social tips. And today we're talking about images. So I should give you just a quick background about us. We have 1.6 million people on Pinterest that follow our blog. So images have just kind of a special place for us because it really is the lifeblood of all of our traffic. So I want to give you a couple tips on how to maximize your traffic with images. Some of them are things to do and a few things not to do, and just some quirky things that we found out that, you know, I don't really understand why they are, but you'll get it in a sec. Okay, I got my list. So another tip I should do someday is make yourself a list. Let me show you this. See? That's my list. So if it looks like I'm looking off camera all the time, that's what's going on. So the first thing is, when you do a blog post, make sure you have 2, maybe even 3 different versions of your cover image. I'm not talking about different angles of the subject that you're shooting. I'm talking one portrait, one landscape, and one square photo of your finished piece that you want to promote. The reason is the different networks have different formats that you need to use. So if I'm on Pinterest, I want to make sure that I have a vertical image because pins take up much more screen space on the viewers, for the users of Pinterest. So you want to make sure that you use a vertical picture. They far, far outperform a landscape or square image. That's just the way Pinterest works. So it's also why you see very, very few pins that are square or horizontal. So that's the first tip. You also want to, you know, in Twitter and Facebook, have the landscape rather than the portrait, because that's how those look best as well. If you use a portrait in Facebook, of course it clips it. You know, they've got some new things coming out, like their albums and that, which are fine, but you know, just make sure that's what you're using. So make sure wherever your audience is, make sure you have graphics designed for those platforms to reach them. That's the point. Second, we have, when you do an image, make sure that you have some text. But I found that if you just use a photo editor or Photoshop to just put some text in, it looks like junk. You know, unless you're really a graphic designer, it's hard. There's a app that I use called WordSwag, and if you read this post, I'll have a link to it in the post for this daily tip. But it has great stylized text. Use it one time, you'll understand the program. It's insanely cool. It just takes your images from your folder on your iPhone or whatever device you have, pulls into the program, and then you just type in what you want, and it will stylize the text. And there are hundreds of different options for you. It's a really cool program, makes things look really good. So make sure you're doing that. Just to give you a quick sample, here's one. This is Creekside Cabin. This is one of our cabins. You know, I just typed the name in there, WordSwag made that, just kicked it out. Super simple. I can move the words around, I can change the colors, I can change the fonts and the sizes easily, and it just does it by default. So you just toggle through until you find one that you like. So that's the second tip. Make sure you have good stylized text that tells people what this is. You know, it's hard sometimes when you look at something on Pinterest or another platform, you don't really know what it is. You know, like in an example of Creekside Cabin, it has a name, it's a rental property, it's very simple and easy to understand. People remember the name when I'm talking to them because I saw the picture. So it's very effective, it's very important to do with your images. All right, make sure also that our third tip is use good equipment. I just did a post yesterday on a preserved lemon chicken. And I gave a little bit of behind the scenes of that post. And down the bottom you can see I split a picture. It's on the left hand side is just an iPhone picture that's unedited, under good lights, under my photography lights. And on the right hand side, what I took with the SLR and cleaned up in Lightroom. World of difference. If you want your stuff really to go viral and really make an impression of something, the pictures need to be excellent. Not good, but excellent. It's so important. That is just key. And part of that is, don't be afraid, if you're just a beginning photographer, to go out and try. Another tip, just keep getting better. Each month, try to learn one new thing about photography, or practice a little bit more, get a little better with the programs like Lightroom and Photoshop, understand how to manipulate the picture, make them really pop and vibrant and pretty, and make it look like people want to be there. When you make that emotional connection with someone, you do very well. So that's that. Another thing I see all the time from bloggers, which drives me crazy because I think it's just the dumbest thing you can do. We aren't photographers. We don't usually get paid to take our pictures and sell pictures. Why are we putting copyright symbols on them? It doesn't make sense. It only makes it so that it looks less friendly to share. If I see a copyright symbol on an image, I will never share it, and I will never put it on my site, because what's my defense? I didn't know it was copyrighted? I mean, you got to be kidding me. It is like a huge red flag. You know, link backs are so important into your site, and almost everybody that gives you link backs is going to borrow an image. And you know what? Make sure your images are free and clear of anything that would make someone not want to do that. It's a huge mistake I see with bloggers. Even some of them that are, you know, that have become substantial bloggers. Even if you're a professional photographer, you know, why are you putting that high of resolution thing on there? You need to have your copyright symbol. I don't get it. It just doesn't make sense to me. It's free marketing. You're getting a whole new audience when someone does that. I gotta go with that one. It's time to move on. When you start taking photography, find a good resource, a blog. There's free ones out there that you can just learn how to do things. They can teach you how to use the aperture and the shutter speed and ISO and all the different lenses and how to set things up and how to set the lighting up. That's all good, but make sure that you then take that picture, use Lightroom to clean it up. Lightroom's a little bit of money, but it's very worth it. Go to the Adobe programs. You can subscribe for monthly fee and get the whole suite. It's worth every penny. It makes all the difference in the world, especially if you're making money on your blog. It's just one of those expenses you have to do. So Lightroom fixes your images. Photoshop edits your images. So let's say you want to layer images or something. That's what Photoshop is really good at. Most people are mistaken. They think Photoshop is where you really clean up the pictures. No, that's Lightroom. Lightroom does that. Photoshop edits it. If you want to add stylized text, if you're really good at it, go ahead and use Photoshop or do whatever you're doing, what you like. But if you're not, grab WordSwag. Those three things, you're set. And lastly, make your images clickable. Don't give your whole recipe or everything on that pin or image, because there's no reason for people to come to your site. Tease them. Show them what a great thing you got, but you got to come see it. Okay? So obviously, because that's where you make money, that's where you make your ad revenue and everything else. So those are the tips for making your images clickable and driving traffic with really good images. Okay, last couple things I want to mention. Content can be a little different than our cover images. Okay, our cover images are strictly for people to come to our site, but sometimes in the content that we make, we have a different use for images, and that's okay. So I'll give you an example. One is a virtual reality tour. So if you shoot a VR tour, it's not going to show very well on most platforms First of all, because not many of them have caught up in the AR VR world yet, where that's the primary thing that they show, and that may not ever happen. So just forget that idea. But second, the images are 360 degrees wide and 180 degrees tall. They're equirectangular. That's what they're called. Those are great for showing a space, for showing a room. So if I go to a hotel, I like showing the hotel room like that. I like showing things, outdoors on a patio. Those are great ways to use those things. But they're not good cover images. So don't be afraid to take things that aren't made for your cover images. And, of course, panoramas I would put in that same category too. Panoramas are a wonderful way to show a landscape. Most of what we see in a VR tour anyways is on that horizon line, that middle third. So, we're not usually looking at the ceiling or the floor right now. So just keep those tips in mind. Again, if you like this tip, you can see the whole series at livedan330.com/live. Or if you're an aspiring blogger and want to learn to start blogging, I've got a link to a primer that will get you going from scratch to making money very quickly. You can check that out at my site, dan330.com/learn-to-blog in one word. The link is also under that live page. So check that out. Otherwise, if you lose track of those links, just go to our front page and you can navigate our site that way. Thanks so much for joining us. Again, this is episode 32 of Daily Tips Live. Thanks for joining. Check out our website, dan330.com, and reach out if you have any questions. We'd love to help answer them. Have a great day.